This is All About the Song.
Welcome to the 140th episode of All About the Song. I am your host, Michael McDonnell, and thank you for joining us. On the podcast today, we have Wayley, who is an incredible artist. He has been on this podcast before. He did one of the 7 in-person video podcasts, which was super cool to do. His EP, Waiting for You, is out. It has also the same EP out in acoustic form, which is honestly just as good, if not better. It gives you an idea of how wonderful the songs are. Wayley, aka Andrew Sherriff, is a fantastic person. We have had a lot of conversations. He works with producer Tal Weisman, who has been on this podcast many times before, and I perform in a band with him alongside Jimmy Chavot and Chad Chevalier called Kadima, which we do talk about a lot in this podcast. And he's just excellent. He has really blown up on TikTok in the last little while. He surfs the Great Lakes, which is not regular for people. Well, even if you're in Ontario, I don't think that you know that people are surfing the freshwater lakes. But he's just such a wonderful person. He is very insightful. He's very thoughtful. He's very enjoyable. And I'm sure that you will get a lot out of this conversation and his music, which I'm sure you will listen to right after you listen to this podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, we are the Sounds Like Songs Network. Hit subscribe, hit the notifications button. We release episodes every Tuesday. So here we are, episode 140 of All About the Song, featuring Wayley. Wayley, thank you again for being on the podcast. Since the last time we spoke, a lot has happened, but it seems to have gone to plan, at least from my perspective per se. The new EP is out, and the acoustic version. You've become a TikTok sensation. I don't know, has this gone to plan? Is this the plan? How has everything been for you?
Everything has been great. It was super busy there for about 6 months. Basically from the beginning of the year to just about now, we've been just nonstop go, go, go kind of thing. And yeah, I mean, we had a plan. Has everything gone to plan? I guess so. Slightly different than we could have ever imagined, especially with the TikTok stuff. But it's all been great, and it's all been pretty wild ride in the, I guess you could say, first year of Wayley right now. Yeah, it's been pretty crazy, and I've just been kind of super grateful for all that support on TikTok, because it's really done a lot of good things for my music.
Well, it's funny. You and I were having a conversation. This is something that stuck with me because I think perhaps the older portion of our listenership may roll their eyes hearing like TikTok being something that's, musically viable, let's say, and everyone thinks of it as like a flash in the pan, even though Much Music this week announced that they're kind of returning on TikTok, which I'll reserve judgment until I see. I think it's kind of interesting. Like,
Yeah,
I don't know if them going back on Channel 29 would have really done much per se.
Yeah.
But what you said to me, which was really cool, is that your listenership and your listener engagement went up a huge amount based on TikTok alone.
Yep, definitely. Like, in like full transparency, I think most of my listeners right now have come directly from TikTok, because I only started putting out music last year in May, end of May. So I just kind of celebrated 1 year of releasing music right now. So in that time frame before, in previous projects I've been a part of, we were nowhere close to the kind of listenership that we have now, and like kind of the real fan base, which is pretty crazy. And I think I owe that all to TikTok. It's hard to tell exactly, but kind of you could see the crossover, and you start to recognize people and usernames and that sort of thing. And just, kind of based off of, let's say, followers on Spotify, it's already more than I ever could have imagined that we would have done in a year, which is quite crazy. And you could definitely see the spikes when you get kind of a TikTok video to pop off about your music. You could certainly see the spikes cross over on all your other platforms. So it does definitely do something pretty huge for your actual fan base and listeners.
Well, I gotta ask this. There was a quote by a music industry guy named Graham Stairs that I've always loved, and it was, if you think failure is hard, try success. Now, with and success is obviously like a spectrum. There's people that, wake up the next day and they have, like 10 million downloads or something that's like absolutely insane. But what I've been, at least from my perspective, the way I've been looking at your success is that this is a steady climb. Like, you're on a trajectory, and it's like you're putting your feet in front of each other, but it's going somewhere. The hill is on an incline in a sense, and you're climbing it at a steady pace. What has success been like for you so far?
It's been interesting. That's actually a really interesting quote, and it kind of brings up like a lot of thoughts in my head. Because I think with TikTok, you can kind of get like an overnight kind of a blow up, and it can really excite you, but it really does some weird things to your mind, because then all of a sudden you just want to focus all your energy on TikTok and go, and making videos like crazy, and constantly just trying to get that to happen again. So it can be a little bit damaging to your mental state. But you kind of have to remember just to take it easy. And that TikTok is kind of like, it's based off an algorithm. So things are going to happen as they happen. You really have no control over it. So I think at the start, I was going pretty nuts just trying to be on TikTok. Like, I think I had something around 14 hours of screen time a day, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Just making videos and kind of interacting and stuff. And now I realize that you're right. It's more kind of like a slow, steady climb. So as long as you're just putting one foot in front of the other and moving forward, that's fine. So I've actually been trying to hang back a little bit these days and create a little bit more space from TikTok, and just work on more music and work on being active and that sort of thing. And I think it's been really nice. And then that allows you the opportunity to kind of rejuvenate your mind and your ideas, and then go back into TikTok after taking a break for a couple weeks, and then go back on it super hard and with a lot of motivation. And so I think it's all really about balance with that. And yeah, success can kind of make your priorities all mixed up in that sense.
Well, I'll also say too, like, I was gonna say, and I don't want to say I'm forgiving you for failure already, but you have been kind of lucky. And no, sorry, I'm taking that back.
No, that's fair. That's honestly fair. I would say the same.
No, yeah, but I mean, I don't mean that with TikTok per se. I mean that the projects that you've done leading up to where you are right now, like, you've always seen an amount of success through them. Like, most of the projects that you've done, and maybe I'm wrong. I'm not to say that you haven't seen failure, but it always, well, actually, maybe I'm answering my own question in a sense, because we're talking about how I'm like reacting to the way that your career has gone based on the previous podcasts that we've done and what we've discussed. But that doesn't mean that you feel that it's successful in a sense. Like, I don't know. Do you feel like this is different than the other projects that you've done in the past?
Definitely. And I think it's always going to feel like that. And the funniest thing about just kind of creating your own thing is, like, you're almost never happy with the success that you do have. So you're constantly setting a new bar. So it's kind of weird to answer, like, do you feel successful? Because you're always kind of just trying to hit that next achievement sort of thing. So you do kind of have to set goals. And I think so far, the goals that I had, let's say when we were chatting last, which would have been at least like 7 months ago or so, I'd say, right? And I've definitely hit those goals for sure, and I've already set new ones. So it's kind of just like an ever moving cycle in that sense. I have had lots of luck though too. So here's the thing: you put a lot of hard work in, you get some luck, and then it all just kind of glues together, and it ends up working out. But you do got to put the hard work in to get that kind of lucky break every once and again, because you got to be ready for it.
Well, and why I kind of paused or stopped my comment was, usually an artist right now in your position, I would say to them, like, what's it like to have, you know, a ton of failures in projects where no one's paying attention, and then have something where they are. But you have been, and this, you know, there has to be a common denominator, obviously, is you, but you've always been able to make something out of, if we consider a song not existing and then existing, you have always been able to create something out of nothing, in a sense.
Yeah, I think, and I've been thinking about this a little bit lately, where, for example, the duo I was in prior to this, Andrew and Beta, we put nearly nothing into marketing. Actually, we didn't put anything into marketing. We kind of just put our songs on the internet. We had no idea what we were doing in that sense. And they just managed to blow up somehow with no effort from us, no intention of them to blow up. They just kind of went somewhere. And I think the bottom line, at least what I'm trying to convince myself on, is if you really believe in those songs and they're really true, they're really genuine, then people hear that. And, you know, that's first and foremost what matters the most, is really caring about the music. So,
well, and
I think if you can do that continuously, you're setting yourself up a little easier than if you're trying to kind of, let's say, there's a lot of people these days that kind of treat the music as kind of like a secondary thing. You know what I mean? So,
well, also, I think a lot of people treat songwriting, and this is something that I noticed that I was getting myself into, where you were treating songs as like someone asked you to write a song and you're like, okay, let's write this. And it says you feel the same about it, or the gratitude or the sincerity. Like, I don't go back and listen to it. That's the thing I notice, is it's like when if I'm asked to write a song, and a friend of mine, and I love him, if he hears this, Christian, you're the best, but we were asked to write some Christmas songs with a deadline, and we were sitting in a park in May, and because of the pandemic, it's not like we've been hanging out except for on Zoom. Yeah. But we went out, and here we are, like, it's this beautiful weather, and the sky's blue, and the birds are chirping, and we're watching people throw Frisbees, and the two of us are trying to write a Christmas song. And yeah, it could turn out great, and maybe it will, but it's like, are we really thinking about this right now? Like, are we really trying to calculate how people are going to respond? And our kind of pitch was like, what's an Old Navy commercial going to sound like with a Christmas song 6 months from now? And it's just, is your heart really in it? And is this going to be really good?
There's got to be a vibe there. I've thought about that too. And it's always like, if you're going to do a Christmas thing, it's almost like you have to write it the Christmas before you're going to put it out. Yeah. So you're in that mood, and it's tough, because I hear the same thing. A lot of artists will do like a Christmas album, and they're writing and recording it in the summer. And I'm just like, man, that's so whack. Like, I don't know how you get the vibe going on when it's mid-July. Everybody's partying out on the dock in their board shorts, and you're in the studio singing, Winter Wonderland. It's crazy.
And you could be inspired. Like, that's the other thing. Like, you could have a total wave of inspiration, and you go, you know what, this is awesome. And it works. And you're like, let's go for it. And it's an organic experience. And you write the song, and you love the song, and you listen to the song, and you put it in your car, and you're just in love with it. But and even if it's not Christmas per se, it's like the idea of just writing a song for a song's sake and not loving it. How, if you can't love it, will someone else? Like, does that idea transfer. And I know there are total exceptions to the rule. Like, you know, Paul McCartney, for example, wrote a ton of songs about nothing that are, you know, instant classics. And
Yeah.
maybe that's an overstep to say that, but songs that people would relate to their, you know, partners and stuff like that, he'd be like, I wrote that about my dog. That doesn't mean that it's not important either, because he obviously loved his dog and the song Martha, My Dear or something. But and I think this is something that I really enjoy about your music, at least, is it feels like it's coming from, like, you want this to be out. And even though you've had successive listenership over multiple projects, you would be happy with if you were just the one listener. Like, it's part of you coming out in a true form, in a sense.
And I was for a while. For a long time, I was the only listener.
Yeah.
So I totally know what you mean. It's kind of weird because when you get deeper into the music world and it becomes more of your life and your daily routine, you kind of start becoming to be on a schedule. So you're kind of expected to be constantly writing songs and kind of working towards the next thing. So let's say I just put out my EP and now I'm kind of working on something else, which we don't know what it's going to be yet, but you kind of feel pressured to write music all the time. And you can kind of get in that mindset where you're like, I'm kind of writing about nothing right now. Like, because you're just like, I should be writing, let's go write. And then you can flex a muscle and do co-writes and that sort of thing. And sometimes it turns out really, really great, but you're totally right. It kind of always works out better if the initial idea or feeling or whatever is coming from like a place that really matters to you. Even if you're writing it with 4 other people, as long as the one initial idea is something that like someone's genuinely really caring about, then it always turns out great.
Yeah. I know that you can't always wait for the muse to tickle your shoulder, in a sense. But I know that you got to like power through when you're not feeling creatively inspired.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that, or I guess even if you're not feeling creatively inspired and you still have to write a song, whatever you're working on has to spark something in you in order for it to work.
Yeah, you have to be excited about it, because there's been definitely, when it comes to writing music, I write a ton of songs before we go to record something, for example. So like a 4-song EP, I think we wrote 20-ish songs for it. And that's even like small in my world. But, there are a ton of those songs, they don't end up making it because you just don't feel something after you've written it and you've recorded it. It's not that they're not good. It's just the other ones just do it for you a little differently. You know what I mean? So
yeah. When you write those demos, how do you do it? Like, not so much like how do you record it, but do you focus on guitar, ukulele, piano, singing?
It's kind of all over the place. Like, a couple of people have asked me this question recently, and I don't have like one specific method per se, because I'm constantly doing things differently. Like I do a lot of co-writing now. Like all those songs on the Wayley EP were co-written with, Tal Weisman and my co-producer, Andre Caden Black. And then we had one other person, Stephen Dahl, writing with us. So it's kind of we would just sit in a room and someone would have like an initial idea. Like I have a notebook with a bunch of things in it, whether it be like titles or kind of like one-liners, contextual ideas. Steven had a massive notebook with like the same thing, just like years of ideas.
Yeah.
Had a lot of voice memos on the old iPhone of like melodies, that sort of thing. Tal is just like a wizard. So if you shoot him like this little idea, he's like, oh yeah, I hear it. And then, same with Andre. So for the Wayley EP, at least, we basically would go into a room, pass around ideas, choose the one we think is great. And then we'd kind of just build it off an acoustic guitar first. So we just write lyrics. We'd all have our notepads or kind of MacBooks or whatever. Mm-hmm. Someone would be playing the guitar. We just start brainstorming ideas. Then we get the kind of acoustic song down. And then after that, we just kind of automatically demo it after that. But most songs for me come from words first. We do it on the acoustic guitar and then kind of make it into a demo afterwards. But I know a lot of people these days kind of start building something up on Pro Tools and get this cool arrangement going and then add words to it. I've always had trouble with that. I've never been able to kind of add words to an already like formed arrangement. So I feel so locked in that way. I feel kind of like you have to conform it to that specific time and arrangement, and this is how long the verse is and this is how long the chorus is. It's tough for my brain to work that way. So just doing it acoustically is always been the best way for me.
Well, I think it's funny because I used to work with two songwriters growing up, and obviously they were finding themselves. So we ended up with a lot of like 5-minute songs and maybe too many bridges, too many solos. But one person was very instrument driven, the other was melody driven. And both were able to write great songs. The melody driven ones, I always felt like the lyrics and the actual important part of the song led. And you could always find your spot for the really cool guitar lick, and you could always find your place for the groove. But the actual song stood on its own a lot better because, and also the instrumentation got more interesting because if the lyrics or something like that, working with a singer-songwriter, acoustic guitar type thing, it might just work and the form turns out to be this really unique thing that you wouldn't get if you are just so specific to like, okay, the verse is going to be 8 bars, the pre-chorus is going to be 4 bars, and then this chorus is going to be, 8 bars, and then this is, and then you get into like that math side of it where it's very, not obvious, but just very like, okay, and then here this comes, and then here this comes, and then here this comes. The formula is there before the magic happens. And with all of these examples, it's not to say that that can't be like the best thing ever. My favorite song I ever wrote was very, formulaic in a sense, but it can, it can also like lead you to write in that regard in a sense.
Yeah, I think that's the key right there is like I try to not be, it's hard when I'm led, like I have to be in a certain direction. So I do enjoy that freedom where you can just kind of take it as it goes with the acoustic guitar. That being said, though, I have in the past, I have written a couple songs just off of kind of already preformed melody sort of thing. But I think it also depends what kind of music you're writing, right? Like I'm sure John Mayer comes up with an awesome guitar riff and then goes, okay, let's build a song around this. I'm sure people do that too. And it just all depends. My music's so lyric based, I think, right? Like it's kind of more like folk pop type stuff. So the lyrics are the face forward kind of thing. I mean, we have lots of cool guitar parts and stuff in it, but you're really listening to the song itself.
Yeah. Now, with the EP being out, having people react to it, obviously it's been, the reaction has been very positive, and it's really cool to see, knowing that even talking to Tal Weisman, your producer, his excitement being like, every time I talk to him, I'm like, man, that Wayley song is just great. And he's like, oh, you can't get ready for the EP. Oh, get ready for the acoustic stuff. Oh, and now he's going like, you want to hear the new single? And I'm saying like, don't. Yes, I do. Yes, play it for me. And he keeps going like, yeah, it's tip of the iceberg, which is really cool. But having this EP out, having people react to it, what are your thoughts on the new music? Like, are you listening to yourself and going, okay, I see where I took Wayley as a project so far. Now I want to do this.
Definitely. I feel like at the moment we've just scratched the surface. Like it's just begun, and I'm super excited, to hear all the response from the EP. It's been super good, and I'm really stoked on the community we're building around, Wayley. Like it's really just nice and positive, and just like really chill vibe. But yeah, as for new music and like where I want to go sort of thing, I think it's kind of interesting because I feel like as a listener, I've always wished that the artist kind of listened to their audience a little bit more when creating music. Because I feel like so many of my favorite artists, I really wished that they would have gone in a certain direction, and the majority of their fan base does too. And then they end up going in a complete opposite direction, which is totally cool because it's your art, right?
Yeah.
And it's kind of just like, it doesn't really fit the needs of a lot of your fans. So then it's like, it's kind of interesting. Like, what are you doing there? But again, artists are all different, right? So it's like kind of whatever angle you want to take. But I've been getting a lot of people. Initially, at first, I didn't really know what kind of world we were going to fit in with Wayley stuff. Like, it was really hard to put a genre on it, at least one, right? But I kind of always said it's like folk pop, folk rock, like indie alternative. Like there's so many angles for it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think after putting out the EP and with our kind of like, I don't know, branding that we've created, I guess it's just my lifestyle really. But with all of that, it seems like we're really fitting into like that folk pop, indie folk type of world. And initially, I was thinking we would be more on like the pop kind of rock kind of world. So my whole perspective has changed in that sense. I'm kind of trying to listen to the fans and the listeners now. I'm thinking, and lately a lot of the songs we've been writing have been more on the like folk pop, acoustic-y type of side, because I think that's what people have been really vibing with. Mm-hmm. And that's what I want to aim for people to vibe with my tunes. So I might as well take the input that people have been giving me and put that towards writing new songs. So I think going forward, I mean, there'll be a lot more acoustic inspired songs. So, which is totally different than I thought it would have been. I would have thought we've been going bigger and bigger, more poppy, that sort of thing, but I'm just stoked. So no complaints here. I'm really excited about all this.
Do you think that the pandemic has altered the way that people are listening to music, in the sense that they're not hearing you? Like, Wayley has not been discovered as a live act yet.
I don't know really, because like that feels like a world that I try not to dive into that much. Like, I've been really trying to kind of get further away from the business world and just kind of focus more on music, because I can get really wrapped up in the whole, the analytics of things. But I don't know. I mean, it seems like a lot of people are getting a lot more streamed listens, which makes sense because there's no live music. But I don't know. It's hard for me to answer that question, really. And yeah, we haven't played live yet. We've done a live stream, but I think our listenership would be totally different if we could be doing shows right now. Because that's how you build like those genuine stick around fans kind of thing. They come to see you. You're now a real person in their head. Right now, I'm kind of just like this internet guy, which is like, I always think about that. I try to post more like videos of just me just talking on social media and that sort of thing to like show people that I'm a real person.
We were talking about live comparison to being an internet person.
Yeah. And I was just saying it's pretty interesting because at first, I didn't have a lot of videos, that sort of thing. So I was posting a lot of photos on my social media just to get things going. And I think if I see a social media account where there's no videos of the people on it, you automatically just like don't associate it with a real person. Like, it's really weird. At least that's how my brain works. So I've been trying to post a lot more face forward videos of me just talking, just showing people my personality, that sort of thing. So at least people know I am a real human. And
oh my God.
You good, Mike?
Excuse me. Wow. All right. Technical difficulties over. We got it all.
That's okay, man. That's all right.
But no, it makes sense. Like, you're kind of like telling people like I'm a real person over a virtual world.
Yeah, and I'm so excited to play shows because I think now with TikTok being there and you know having that online fan base that's kind of there, like your regulars, that sort of thing. I think it'd be really cool to go around and just play shows and meet all these people. Like it's the first time in my music career that I feel like I could now go on a bigger tour
Yeah.
and sell tickets and be playing shows all over the place. Whereas before, all my tours have been pretty smaller scale, not usually like ticket based, more like pop up type of shows all across the country. And it's kind of just like whoever shows up, shows up.
Hmm.
But I feel like now I could really do the real thing. And I'm really excited about that because I think that's what it's all about. I'm a people person and I would love to go around to shows and just like meet everyone and, just kind of build the community in that natural way. Because it's hard online sometimes too, right? Like you can't put a face to anyone. So it's just really
No.
nice to get that in life experience.
Well, also, I think that you're off to a really good head start in the sense that you've established a bit of a relationship and you can follow through. Being a nice person and personable and having like a fun time. It's unique in a sense and very specific to the times to have established relationships with people and carved a part of you into like their timeline in a sense. With the music being reflective of how they've listened, though, I think it'll be really interesting. I guess I was getting at your audience only has heard you one way, they've not heard you live, so they don't have an
Yeah.
opinion. But that doesn't mean that like the songs don't translate live in a more powerful way, for example. So you might have like an acoustic song that's very quiet and intimate, and you can make it, you can make it bigger. That's the benefit of having really good music is that you can, you can take it in so many different ways. So I guess that doesn't matter. I guess I was concerned when you said, not concerned, but I guess I was thinking, does your audience know taking their lead as to the direction that you're going, which is great to do. Do they know everything so far about you? And they may want something that they don't or have yet to seen per se.
Yeah, and I would take that like I was saying that with a grain of salt. Like
Yeah, no, of
I'm
course.
I'm not kind of like writing my songs now based on what people are putting on my YouTube comments, but I do enjoy I do enjoy to listen to that because I think it's important. Like I think of it in a, let's say, in a business standpoint. As a company, you want to be listening, like if you're creating a new product, you want to be listening to what the user, the buyers want. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that's how you create a better new product. You're not putting everything they say into it because there's a lot of questionable ideas out there. But I think that's really important if you think about how the world works. You know what I mean? Like they do focus groups for products to make them better, and they do all sorts of things, surveys and that sort of stuff. And it's kind of like that's kind of what I'm doing with my music because I feel like a lot of artists haven't done that in the past. But I think you're right. There's a lot of sides of me that people don't know about. And in a live sense, I'm really excited about that because first and foremost, I've never played shows before in like a full band setting in this particular way that we have it set up now. So in between the pandemic, there's been times where we were allowed to do band practices and that sort of thing. And we've got the band together and we were able to do a couple live sessions, which was really cool to just feel out how these songs will be performed live. It's bigger than I've ever done anything before. We have drums and drum pads and key parts and loud guitar parts and big harmonies. And I'm playing multiple instruments and it's just really cool. The cool thing about that though is you get that big show aspect, but I'm also so used to doing things just stripped back acoustic. So I think if you were to come to one of my shows, it would be very dynamic in a sense where I could start things really big and then do like a chill couple songs acoustically, really intimate type of thing. There'd be a lot of different arrangements. And I think you're totally right. People just have no idea about that yet, and I'm really excited for them to find out what we can do.
Well, the live streams or the live recordings that you've done with bands so far have been fantastic. Like where you did it in Kincardine, I think I talked to Tal on a podcast about it, but you recorded it in Kincardine, and the visuals are just amazing. The song sounds so great. Chad Chevalier, who is the drummer, I've never heard him play so quiet before. But it's just, I think it's just absolutely fantastic. Erica Knox on the acoustic guitar as well. I think that, it was really cool to see, and I was glad that you guys were able to pull that off in a sense. But for me at least, it gave me a spark to seeing how this could be developed, and it's really great to hear you. Obviously, you've been thinking about how you're going to translate live, but it's really cool for you to kind of developing an arc of it and maintaining a trueness to the recorded sound, but also seeing how big you can make this.
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, I owe a lot of that to the amazing people that I'm surrounded by. Those live sessions would not be possible. Like, I have a great team that I'm working with now, and everyone's super talented. And of course, all the people that played with me in my band are awesome. But yeah, it should be interesting. Like, that was definitely the first time I've played. Well, that was the first time I played those songs live, was actually at those live sessions we shot, which were shot sometime around last year in September, I think. Mm-hmm. So there's a window where we weren't in lockdown, and we were able to get in one rehearsal or two rehearsals kind of thing. And then we had to be somewhere out of the city because there needed to be more space, obviously, and it was a small operation. So yeah, we found a really cool nature reserve out near Kincardine. So it's kind of southwestern Ontario. And it just turned out really awesome. It was interesting because the tracks are obviously pretty big tracks. Like, that was always the intentions, to kind of make it a big produced track on the Wayley EP. So we had to do a lot of thinking of how we were going to translate that to live. And we couldn't really have a huge band too, because we were really limited with the amount of people we could have on set. So there's a lot of people doing multiple jobs in the band. Whereas maybe in a different setting, there would be a couple more members of the band tackling their own sort of thing. But yeah, everyone did a great job, and I'm super excited to play that format live as well.
What did it feel like at that first rehearsal? Like, hearing those songs, was it nerve-wracking? Like, obviously everyone came prepared, but like to hear the songs and all of a sudden it's like, wow, this train I built is going.
So nerve-wracking, man. So nerve-wracking, because these songs for me, like, it took a lot of work for me to build up the chops to sing these songs, because usually I'll sing in a way lower range. I always have. But for these songs, Tal and Andre really wanted to push me to sing as high as I possibly could. Right. More just to, like, give more energy to the songs and kind of grab your attention. So for the first time ever to record these songs, I actually worked with a vocal coach, and, I had to build up my confidence to sing these songs like I did in the recording. So I was definitely nervous about how I'd be able to perform it live. And in the same key, there's a lot of hard falsetto parts and that sort of thing. So it was a nervous first rehearsal. And I remember I was pretty shaky about it, but by the second rehearsal, it felt natural already. And I was really excited about it. It was the first time that I had ever had to perform with, like, in-ear monitors and, like, on time and everything like that. So that was also a learning curve for me as well. But it just turned out to be really ideal and nice. And I really love performing that way now. And I don't have the greatest ears, in a sense of they've been pretty damaged over time. Unfortunately, in my younger years, I didn't treat them as good as I do now. So playing loud music is actually really difficult for me. So having the in-ear monitors was just a dream come true, because not only does it protect my ears, but it also makes it way easier for me to actually hear myself while I'm playing. So it's just like, I loved it, and it all felt really, really natural and great.
I've similarly gone through this transition lately, and it's been absolutely fantastic working with in-ears, being able to adjust your own mix. I
Hmm.
feel as a bass player, like I can hear myself, and I can hear
Yeah.
not just like the oomph, but I can hear the color of the instrument.
Yeah.
And it's allowed me to sit back and like not try to bash the instrument as hard
Mhm.
as I can. And then also with like doing backup vocals and stuff, you can increase your volume. So all of a sudden you don't listen back and you're not like getting the what I call like my weasel belt, where I just have this horrible sound that I'm just trying to like just keep up in a sense, and you can just get it right. I agree. It
Yes.
is such a game changer. I'm doing a bit of a, you know, 10, 15 years ago, it was all about having like this specific gear that looks really cool. But maybe in 2021, a all tube amplifier that needs to, you know, create lifelong tinnitus in most of us may not be the way to go moving forward, and might not be the best.
I
Like
think
just because it worked in
that's
1960.
that's the thing that the pandemic has done to a lot of musicians, is kind of make them think a little bit more logically about things. Like I'm so guilty of it. I used to, well, I still do. I love vintage instruments and gear. And I've always been a huge gearhead, so I was constantly like searching the forums and Reverb.com and Kijiji and all this sort of stuff to find cool vintage gear. And I had all this really great stuff, but then I realized, yeah, like it doesn't, when you start getting a little bit more serious about performing, it doesn't always do the job you really need it to do. And it more often than not makes your life harder on stage than it should be. So, yeah, I mean, I have a great, huge Fender Vibro Verb, but it's probably never going to leave my house and come on stage anymore because it's just kind of pointless. And the vintage Gibson that cuts out every 3 seconds on stage and the pick guard starts falling off mid performance. It's cool looking, but maybe it's more of a house guitar. And I've recently invested in kind of more newer instruments that are a little bit more solid and may not be as aesthetically cool or cool to the vintage gear nerds, but it works really well. So I think you're right about that.
Yeah, I've got a Fender Twin that my cat Connie, she sleeps on it. It's her bed. That's the amp now. And
Yeah.
I use an amp modeler, and now I bike ride to gigs, and it's the happiest I could ever be. It's just
Yep.
showing up. And usually I also find too that if you need an amplifier or something to project yourself, the appropriate room will be able to provide. We all don't need to have amplifiers the size of refrigerators to play a club that's half the size of our apartment.
Yeah, last time I went on tour for one of my other projects, I actually ended up buying a Fender Blues Junior, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Um, and my old self would have cringed at the fact that I was buying a cheap new Fender, but it actually worked really great because it's super light. It was still a tube amp, so I could still get that feel. And you just pop a mic in front of it, and you rarely would ever have to put the dial more than 7 or 5 on the amp, and it would already be too loud. So having that little tiny cube rather than lugging in a massive amp. Also, you don't really care if your nice, cool vintage amp gets destroyed in transit, right? So
Yeah.
it
Well,
all works out better.
I watched a really nice, cool amp get a mic stand through the speaker on a bumpy
Mhm.
road in a U-Haul trailer. And it was unfortunate, but it's also like, hey, what'd you expect? You took a senior citizen amp on the road. But that same guitar player, once we were playing a club in Toronto, 3 floors up, the band before us had, massive, one had like a Marshall stack, one had a Mesa stack. And, they're playing, and we just watched the house tech at the back, just arms crossed. All the faders are just at zero because he's like, they've not allowed me to do anything with the PA.
Yeah.
Like, we can't hear anything. These guys are just like basically just bashing you with sound. And my guitar player had the Blues Junior. He put it on a chair. We could watch the opening band smirking in the corner. But, you know, there's a reason why there are massive PA columns
Mm-hmm.
to the left and the right and behind and mid-state. Like, if you allow the sound to be appropriate for the venue, and then the sound tech, his whole profession is to make you sound good, give him the room in order to do so. Well, equivalent, it sounded like he had 30, guitar amps on stage, and it was surround, and it was full, and it was, but it just, it doesn't look that cool. And there's a reason why Kiss perform in front of like 500 amps.
Yeah.
Because it looks the part, but they're not actually real amps. They're just cabinets, fake amps.
It's so funny the world we live in that sense, because I'm working on a new thing with Kadima. So we were in the studio the other day. I'm not going to give away too many spoilers yet, but we were going to grab lunch at Burrito Boys, our famous spot. And
Burrito Boys
and
is supposed to sponsor Kadima. That's what we're working on.
Burrito
Boys
sponsor
us.
Sorry, I hear you guys are quite regulars over there at that spot. So
we get complimentary soft drinks. We go so much.
That's pretty much sponsorship already, then, man. Like,
yeah, that's
what do you want? But yeah, we were pretty tired because we all surfed the day before for like 5-6 hours, and I'm still sunburnt as is. And Jimmy and I look at each other and we go, let's get some Red Bulls, right? And I haven't had a Red Bull in years. Okay. And we're just chatting, and I'm just like, what's interesting about Red Bull is I always want one because I see all my favorite athletes drink Red Bull like crazy. They're sponsored by Red Bull. Like in action sports, every big athlete is sponsored by Red Bull. All the events are sponsored by Red Bull. I just started thinking to myself, I'm just like, there's obviously no way that these athletes are actually drinking that Red Bull, because no one in their right mind would pound back a Red Bull and then go like compete in the highest level competition of their sport. Like, it just health wise, that makes zero sense. So I'm just like, they got to be sending these guys water canned in Red Bull cans, because I know they do it at music festivals too. With like Monster, they put water in Monster cans and hand that around if the event is sponsored by them. And I'm just like, it's all optics these days, and it works so well. But then if you get it confused, it can really do bad things for you. So it's same thing with the amps. You see Kiss, and you're just like, I need to have huge amps on stage. Meanwhile, they're not actually using those amps. And you got to think about that. And it got me thinking about that with the Red Bull too. Like, you really got to dig into things, because there's so many misleading concepts out there these days, and especially with just like the way that media works.
Well, the last show I played, somebody made a smirk about like the guitar amp being like, sure, we're going to be able to hear you, like a older gentleman. And then the sound tech 5 minutes later looked at me, he goes, by the way, your bass sounds amazing. And it's like, okay, who do I need to impress right now? If I can at least impress the sound guy at first, he'll impress everyone else. He'll make sure I'm heard. And that was always I always loved that, because I've never, ever since moving away from like massive amplifiers and stuff, I've gotten so many compliments from sound guys, and like my bass playing hasn't changed. Like, I'm still doing the same thing I've always done to an extent, but if it sounds good, that's the most important thing. And the optics, you're absolutely right. Like, I was in a Dawson Gamble live stream video, which was really cool. And there was an amp there, but the amp was there to like cover up like extension cords. And it looks really cool, but we carried that 60-pound amp for aesthetics only. And
yeah, we do that a lot of the time too. Like, or you're just using one amp, and then you put kind of 3 just in the room to cover up like chords and that sort of stuff. So it's funny, like it can be super misleading if you don't know really what's going on. But you're totally right. just, being dialed in about your stage sound is way more important than how it looks to some extent. Like, same thing with just your confidence on stage. Like, if you're worried about gear, in a sense it's not going to work or something's going to conk out halfway, then you can't get the same energy when you're performing too. So you really got to just have that whole topic off your mind while you're on stage. So it's good to have the right gear, the gear that works, the gear that sounds good, no matter how cool it looks or whatever you think,
At the end of the day, it's just got to be, this is also the interesting thing of you being pretty much an exclusively virtual artist. You've not had to worry about those things thus far, and your audience is going to be super bummed out if they go to a show and they can't hear you sing because the guitar is too loud. And I think that I mean, let's end it like this. I really hope Burrito Boys does endorse us, because I think we've shot ourselves in the foot with a Fender endorsement with this conversation. But
hey, nothing against Fender.
Fender's awesome.
But yeah, you do have to get a little wiser as time goes on about performing, and it makes your life easier, and it's so nice. So nice.
There's the James Brown thing I always talk about. He had a rule for his band. It's like, if you can't carry your gear, you have too much gear. Like, you can only have what you can carry.
Yeah, I've overdone it in the past big time, and I'm like, why am I doing this, man? Come on, like, I don't need half these pedals. I don't need a secondary guitar just because this one sounds more on tone with this song. Like, don't need it, man. And a big thing that's changed for me is I used to really try to be true to the acoustic guitar tone. So I used to prefer performing in front of a mic. Like, my acoustic guitar would be unplugged but mic'd. And that causes a whole world of problems for sound techs, for me, because things feed back. You can't hear the guitar sometimes. You also can't move too much. And recently I just found a really great acoustic guitar pickup that sounds as close as being mic'd as you possibly can. And it has changed the game, because you just plug in and go, and there's no worries of freedom on the stage. And with that, it just makes your performance so much better.
Now, we got to end soon, but I want to ask you about one last thing.
Sure.
Surfing. All year you surfed. All year you surfed. All winter, spring, summer. It has been something that's been very captivating, especially on TikTok. But I know that this is not about the optics. This is something that you genuinely love. What has surfing meant to you, and how has it made you a better artist?
Okay, I'll try to keep this short and concise, but surfing has definitely changed my life, especially in the last 2 years. It's changed so many things for me. First off, Tal and I, who initially Tal was just my producer, and now we're kind of like best buds, which is awesome. And it changes the game musically in that sense, because we're just so much more comfortable with each other. Mm-hmm. And we're not always working on like a business schedule. We can kind of just hang out and work in that sense. So musically, that's changed the game so much just because of that, our relationship. But, I think it just organically became my music brand as well. Like, part of my, every artist has like their thing outside of music. And I think surfing and the whole like outdoors lifestyle is just kind of naturally formed into the Wayley thing. Like, that's what we're about, which is awesome, because that's just me. That's what I do all the time. And during the pandemic, there hasn't been a lot to do for me. Like, prior to the pandemic, I did have another job on top of music, but I got laid off right as soon as the pandemic hit. And that kind of freed up so much time for me. And without surfing, I probably would be at home sulking a lot more than I am. And it's really got me out there and just kept me active. And it's been nice too, because I could see the music community and the surfing community kind of combining. And it's just been really cool. I've had the opportunity to meet so many awesome people through the pandemic, which I wouldn't have been able to necessarily because you can't really go out and meet people right now. But, you know, you see people in the water or whatever, and, you know, you can make friends online after that. And it's been really cool and keeping me healthy too. Like I was pretty out of shape prior to the pandemic because we were playing shows a lot and eating bad food and drinking a lot of free beers and that sort of stuff. So I've definitely got a lot more in shape throughout the pandemic too. And that's all thanks to surfing, because it was kind of like the one thing I could really go out and do during the pandemic. Is exercise, you're away from people. It's all good. So yeah, it's really changed my life in in a really great way. And I'm super grateful for it. And now that's all I can think about. It's crazy. I'm just watching the forecast way too much. Way more than a normal 25-year-old would be watching a weather forecast.
Yeah, you guys are meteorologists at this point. But I will say that once the weather gets a little bit warmer, once the water gets a little bit warmer, I believe I am to join you guys out on the waves. So
100%, yeah.
I might see you out there.
Everyone in the water.
I've been instructed to work on my push-ups, so I'm getting ready. I'm starting to watch some YouTube videos. I'm not obsessed yet, but I think for being in a band and we're being around all these musicians that are surfing, I think that it might be cool. If it doesn't become my thing, that's okay too. But I just I'm intrigued, and the fact that you did this all winter is just insane and amazing. And I hope that all the work that you did in the winter has made this summer that much more enjoyable, in the sense that your mustache is not covered in 10-inch icicles as it was in December, which was so crazy.
It's paid off for sure. I can already confirm that. Like Tal and I have been really practicing and getting out there, because I've been surfing in Ontario for 2 and a bit years now, I think. And Tal's been like 3 and a bit years. I surfed prior to it, but I didn't for a long time. We kind of had to get back into it. So Tal and I have been really on the practice grind. We've been doing lots of kind of flatland training, that sort of thing too. And it really has been showing, which is exciting, because now, yes, it's good weather. We've been out a couple days already during the summer where it's just like you're in kind of like board shorts or your short wetsuit, and it's like you're in California. It's awesome, and it's just so fun. So definitely got to get you out to come surf with us. It'll be awesome.
Well, thank you, Wayley, for coming on the podcast today. Always fun to talk to you. I love discussing your insight on music. I think that you have a good head on your shoulders. And
thank you.
I'll ask you, like I ask everyone, what's next for you?
Well, I'm working on something cool with the boys from Kadima. So more news on that soon. And right now, just kind of focusing on writing a lot of new tunes and just kind of getting back to being my my best self. So that's what I'm doing.
I'd like to thank Wayley for being on the podcast today. If you have any questions, comments, suggestions for a guest you'd like to hear on the podcast, send us an email, allaboutthesongpodcast@gmail.com. We're at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcasts, we are there. And if you could rate and review, that would be fantastic. If you're watching on YouTube, we are the Sounds Like Songs Network. Hit subscribe, hit that notification button. All About the Song comes out every Tuesday. This is my cat Mayonnaise. He's been scratching at my feet this entire time, so he is joining me for at least if you're watching on video, I got him in my hands. He's a wonderful person that scratches my feet every time we do this podcast. But we are having an absolutely fantastic time. I always find when we get to numbers like 140, it's absolutely crazy that we continue to do this. I'd like to shout out the entire team with the Sounds Like Songs Network that make this podcast possible each and every week. And I hope that you're having a wonderful day. It's the weekend for us. We're going to have an excellent weekend. And we look forward to bringing you another podcast next Tuesday. So on behalf of Wayley, aka Andrew Sherriff, I am Michael McTennell. Episode 140 is in the books. We'll see you next week. Did you good? All right, boy. All right, buddy.